for this game. And one of the guys I'm keeping an eye on as a sleeper is Tyler Conklin. Although, I guess at this point, if it's a tight end who is operational, it might just be a start. But Conklin I like because the Vikings, if they have a vulnerability, it is against the tight end position. You heard Stacey talk about how much they blitz. They do like to play sort of a coverage show, which means there could be some opportunities sort of in the intermediate part of the field, especially if Rodgers wants to get the ball out quickly. Conklin over the last 2 weeks, a combined 14 targets and 9 receptions. Minnesota has given up the 4th most fantasy points per game to tight end so far this season.
Yeah, on the other side, Sam Darnold might have flushed New York out of his memory, but I think you should flush Sam Darnold out of your starting lineups this week. I know he leads the league in passing touchdowns right now, but the Jets are the best secondary in the NFL. They've allowed the second fewest passing yards and only 2 passing touchdowns this year. And it's not just a this year thing. They have been shutting down offenses for years now. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, all of those guys. Plus, London games tend not to be that high scoring. Since 2021, one team has reached 28 points in London.
And we will see how this one goes. Reminder, it kicks off 9:30 a.m. Eastern, so pro tip, maybe go set your lineup on Saturday night so you don't have to worry about getting up early and doing it in the morning, especially if you're on the...
Jake Ferguson is a must-start option this week, partially because he is a tight end who is getting targets, and that's all you need to be at the tight end position right now. 18 targets in his last 2 games. He has topped double-digit fantasy points in each of them. He has been Dak's number 2 target, and that should only grow with Brandon Cooks out this week, on a Cowboys team that has thrown the 2nd highest rate in the NFL. Plus, Steelers one of 5 teams to allow multiple touchdowns to a tight end this week. They are going to try to take CeeDee Lamb out. They can't take everyone out. I feel really good about Jake Ferguson in this one.
I don't feel really great about Dak Prescott. He's going against a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that's given up the 6th fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. They've allowed fewer than 250 passing yards in every game this season, and the only quarterback with multiple touchdown passes against Pittsburgh is Joe Flacco. Now, Dak does have a couple of big fantasy games this season, but they've come in really negative game scripts. Week 2, they were getting blown out by the Saints. Week 3, they were down 28-6 to the Ravens before they came back and made that one close. The issue here is that I don't think the Steelers can muster enough offense to really make this a one-sided game. They rank 24th in points scored, so even if they take a lead or get a win, it's not that they're going to run away with this thing and force Dak into a situation where he has to throw the football a lot. I really don't like the option of starting him this week against Pittsburgh. Moving on to the Bills and the Texans. Maybe this is a revenge game for Stephon Diggs this week. But, Rank, what are you looking at for this one?
Well, I like both of these wide receivers in season long. You're looking at Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. You would never sit them in your season-long leagues. However, the Bills have been really tough against opposing wide receivers. So I would actually beware, especially in DFS formats. The Bills have not allowed a player with more than 80 receiving yards in a game this season. Only one receiver has topped over 50. That was Christian Kirk, who had 79 yards. They've allowed an average 86 receiving yards per game to wide receivers in 2024, the fewest in the NFL. They allowed a touchdown to Michael Wilson in week 1. Since that time, they have not allowed a wide receiver to score a receiving touchdown. So again, season long, continue to play him. Don't come at me on Twitter. Like, remember when you told me to? I'm not telling you to bench Nico Collins. I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying that if you play a different variety of fantasy football, the Texans receivers might not have the best matchup for you.
Well, I think a guy that does have a good matchup on Houston's side is Cam Akers. The Bills have been very good in the secondary. They've been a little bit more vulnerable against the run. Looks like Joe Mixon is going to miss another week. Not official, but looking like he's going to be out. The Bills' run defense ranked 30th. I was heading into Thursday Night Football, giving up a league-high 250 receiving yards, by the way, and 3 receiving touchdowns to running backs, which maybe means you can sneak Dare Ogunbowale into a DFS lineup. This is an offense that's already very pass-heavy. They could throw it even a little bit more, so maybe we see Cam Akers get some targets. Could be one of the higher scoring games of the week as well. So maybe this is a chance for you to get Cam Akers in as a flex. Ravens and Bengals, really interesting game in the AFC North. Florio, is this right? Are you saying to really sit this guy?
It feels dirty to say, especially as I'm wearing orange. But, yeah, I think you could try to sit Joe Burrow in this one. Joe Burrow this year is averaging under 14 fantasy points per game against non-commander opponents, and the Ravens are elite. You see there that Burrow has struggled against them fantasy points per wise. In his last 3 full games against the Ravens, just 218 passing yards per game. They shut down Josh Allen last week. They limited Patrick Mahomes in week 1. And in their last 16 games, that is nearly a full season. 2 quarterbacks have scored 18 fantasy points against them. So if you have like Geno Smith, Justin Fields, I would go in the other direction and get away from Burrow in this one.
On the other side of this one, I'm going to be starting Zay Flowers in a really nice matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have allowed at least 18 fantasy points to a wide receiver in each of the last 3 weeks. And as a matter of fact, they've allowed 4 top 20 wide receivers over that stretch. And Zay Flowers is the guy that I would count on. He's the only Ravens wide receiver with at least 10 receptions this year.
Moving over to the Cardinals and the 49ers matchup in the NFC West. And this is sort of a call for everyone who drafted Brandon Ayuk to exercise some patience. I think you can start him. I think you should start him this week. I know a lot of folks getting antsy because he's yet to give you 50 receiving yards in a game this year. Meanwhile, we see Jawan Jennings doing big things. Look, keep an eye on the injury report. George Kittle did not practice on Thursday. We'll see what his status is coming up on Sunday. But you see there the 5 end zone targets, most on the team. Still very heavily involved, 87% route participation. Arizona giving up the 9th most receptions to wide receivers. So, look, consider this the end of preseason for Brandon Ayuk. Now he should be ready to go for the regular season. All it took was 5 weeks. If you were riding with him, keep riding with him a little bit longer. The big game is coming.
As someone who all summer long said to buy the dip on Brandon Ayuk, I really need that. And I've already said to sit a couple of big-name quarterbacks, so why not one more? Kyler Murray, who has scored under 15 fantasy points in 3 of his 4 games, including being held to single digits last week against the Washington Commanders, the best matchup a quarterback could have. The 49ers are not that, and Kyler has struggled against them in his career, under 250 passing yards in each of his last 4 games against them, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in that span. So names like Fields, Geno, Brock Purdy on the other side, all quarterbacks that I would play over Kyler Murray this week. Right now, 8 or more targets in 3 of his last 4 games. His lowest fantasy game on the year is 9.8, which is such a safe floor that you could just plug in for an injury replacement, bye-week replacement. But now with Neighbors out this week, the passing attack might run through Wan'Dale Robinson, which should elevate not only his floor, but his ceiling as well. He might just be a straight-up start this week now.
But I'm worried about because Malik Neighbors takes all the coverage.
True.
You have to roll coverage towards him. So I don't know. Is it Jalen Hyatt season? I don't know. One guy that I do love in this contest, though, is Geno Smith, who has had at least 17.5 fantasy points in 3 games this season. He's one of 5 quarterbacks to do that. He leads the NFL in pass attempts, which seems a little wild as well. And I got to be honest with you, I was skeptical of this Seahawks offense coming into this season, but they've done a really nice job of putting up a lot of points. And another great guy to start in this one is DK Metcalf, who might end up as the wide receiver 1 this week.
Very good opportunity for DK in that passing game for Seattle. Meanwhile, our next-door neighbors, the Rams, throwing a party. They're going to have a lot of cheese with the Packers coming into town. And you got to start Tucker Kraft in this one. I know we are all hurting at the tight end position. Sure, things are getting slightly better with Kyle Pitts doing things. But for the rest of us, Tucker Kraft has a really good opportunity against this Rams defense. I know Matt LaFleur doesn't want to talk about his wide receiver 1, but he can talk about his tight end 1, because that appears to be Tucker Kraft. Twice as many snaps, twice as many routes as Luke Musgrave. Nearly 15% target share. I know that doesn't seem like a lot because they have so many pass catchers, but look, we know Christian Watson is out. Romeo Doubs missed practice a couple days this week. They don't really throw to their running backs quite as much, so Kraft should get plenty of opportunity. Maybe they're short targets, but they are targets nonetheless. That can add up very, very quickly in this offense.
Well, that would mean that you want to start both Packers wide receivers in this one. Jaden Reed, who might be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver this week. I think there's a really good opportunity. But the guy who is the likely number 1 waiver wire pickup this week for you was Dontavian Wicks. And I know there's going to be people on the internet who go, oh, I drafted. Okay, yeah, you draft. Congratulations. You take your victory lap. Oh, my God. Kraft is a cheese.
Yes.
Oh, my God. I just got that. Okay, anyways, Dontavian Wicks, though, I think it's a lot of opportunity against this Rams defense in what will be, sorry, everybody, it'll be a Packers home game. They travel well. And then you'll see it, and people will go. There'll be people that get wind in their jaw, and they'll post photos. Look at all the green in this stadium. Should have never left St. Louis. It would have happened in St. Louis, too. The only difference is they got a better stadium here.
I've already met 2 people today who are Packer fans who said they're going to
be there. Joe, our sound guy's going.
He's going to be there.
Couldn't wait to tell me.
He's going to wear his David Bakhtiari jersey and everything,
I don't care. Go.
Absolutely.
Enjoy yourself.
Let's dig in further to this game. Back here on Fantasy Live, we got the Browns at the Commanders, and yeah, Jaden Daniels, Commanders offense. But have you considered the Cleveland Browns?
Ooh.
I like as a sleeper this week, Jerry Jeudy, which I know we haven't really talked about him a whole lot this season, but quiet as it's kept, he actually leads the Browns in catches and receiving yards. He's had 6 or more targets in every game this season, averaging 11.5 air yards per target. So they are trying to push the ball downfield with him. They've been mildly successful so far, but you see that right there. Washington allowed 10 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers this season. If there's ever an opportunity for the Browns passing game to get going, it's against a Commanders secondary that has been a soft target for a lot of fantasy managers this year.
You know what? I'm just going to take the easy route here and go with Amari Cooper, who is 6th in the NFL with 37 targets this season, and the totals on the board are correct. At least 8+ targets in each of his 4 games this year. He is one of just 2 players to be able to do that. So when you've got a plus matchup against the Washington Commanders, I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, especially if you've been struggling at the wide receiver position.
Once upon a time, Dolphins, Patriots seemed like must-see TV in the AFC East. That's not today. This week they play each other in what should be a matchup because the schedule maker said so. But Florio, what do you have your eye on in this one?
I know you might not love this one, but I think Antonio Gibson is a sleeper this week against the Dolphins. There's talk coming out of New England that they want to get Gibson more involved because, well, he is simply outproducing Ramondre Stevenson right now, averaging more than a yard per carry than Stevenson and nearly 3 times as many yards on a per catch basis right now. Plus, the Dolphins are in the top 5 in fantasy points per game allowed to running backs, and with the way their offense is playing, this might actually be a game where the Patriots are not down 3 scores and can run the ball.
All right, so you got Antonio Gibson as a sleeper. You know what? I say start Ramondre Stevenson. Are you trying to tell me Gerard Mayo knows his team better than I do? I don't believe it. Look, I do want to see how they're going to start to distribute the opportunities in this backfield, but I still want the guy who is leading in opportunities. He's still way more involved in the passing game. Yes, he does not have as many receiving yards, but he's running more routes, has more targets than Gibson so far this season. Now, I am a little bit concerned about them losing David Andrews in the middle of that offensive line. That is a concern with them trying to run the football, but the upside is that the Dolphins are not beating those we can't stop the run allegations. 100 or more rushing yards allowed in every game, multiple rush TDs in 3 straight games. But
so Ramondre Stevenson's in trouble because he fumbles too much.
Yes.
He has 4 this year. So they're going to bring it in for the guy who got ran out of Washington because he fumbles too much.
Hey, man.
Got it.
Essentially. Let's look at the Colts and the Jaguars. And in this one, I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence with some sleeper vibes, and it's not just because I'm starting him over Kirk Cousins this week. Look, the Colts ranking 26th against the pass the last couple of weeks, giving him some big yards through the air, including 312 passing yards to Justin Fields. Jacksonville throwing the ball more than 60% of the time. Now, some of that had to do with game script, with them trailing pretty frequently, but this is a good opportunity against a bad defense to make some hay in this one.
I like both of his primary receivers, Brian Thomas Jr., but more importantly, Christian Kirk, because slot receivers seem to thrive against the Indianapolis Colts. And Christian Kirk has 22 targets in his last 2 weeks, which is tied for the 4th most in the NFL. And he's done really well in his history against the Indianapolis Colts. 5 receiving touchdowns in his last 4 games against the Colts.
All right, moving over to the Panthers and the Bears. Ranked, maybe not a revenge game for DJ Moore. This is like a winning the breakup matchup, right?
I think the Bears won this one. Who's starting at quarterback for the Panthers? Yeah, I think this one can be declared for the Bears. But what we really want to see is more production from DJ Moore and Caleb Williams. The two have not quite been on the same page that much this season, but that connection that we just saw a moment ago, that touchdown pass against the LA Rams was an absolute dime. Like, what a gem of a play. And it's really something that Bears fans aren't accustomed to seeing from their quarterback, which is making 3 reads and then throwing the football. And if they could do that a little bit more and get DJ Moore involved, this could be a huge thing. By the way, that was the most heartbreaking. Like, how do you catch the desperation heave and you're 1 yard short of the goal line?
That would have been Caleb Williams' first touchdown pass, too, had he actually caught that in the end zone. Raiders and Broncos. While Davante Adams is posting pictures of 19th century horror writers from Baltimore, there is a pass catcher worth maybe looking at in Las Vegas.
I would say Trey Tucker is the guy that I would look at. I would imagine Patrick Surtain is going to be on Jacoby Myers, which will probably open things up for Tucker, who has been very productive over the last couple of weeks. You probably should have picked him up prior to last week. He has 19 fantasy points in the last 2 games. Wasn't much of a factor when the season started with, of course, they had Davante Adams. But in this one, I think if you were in a desperate need for a wide receiver, I know in the leagues where I've lost Davante Adams, I've picked up Trey Tucker. And listen, sorry, Broncos fans, I'm still picking you to win, but I'm still going to start Trey Tucker where I need to.
Yeah, Broncos fans, you might like this one. I think this is a Javonte Williams week.
Please be.
Last week, he had a season-high 16 carries, and don't look now, but he has 12 targets in his last 3 games. But this is about the matchup. Not only have the Raiders allowed the 8th most fantasy points per game to running backs, a running back has scored at least 15 fantasy points in every single game against them so far this year, and in half of them, a running back has scored at least 22. So Broncos, please give Javonte Williams the ball, and Javonte, do what you do best, because I am starting you in a number of lineups.
Yeah, I could definitely use some Javonte Williams love this week.